What if I told you that the president of the United States is openly trying to steer one of the largest news organizations in the world into the hands of one of his allies? Because that is exactly what media analysts are warning about right now. And if this goes through, it's not just a business story. This is a story about freedom of the press. It's a story about political power. And it's a warning sign that everyone should be paying attention to. To continue to get accurate breakdowns of the most pressing news of the day, subscribe to Courier below. My name's Mason. I'm a progressive live streamer known as One Hand Politics, and I've partnered with Courier to bring you the most pressing news of the day. So here's what happened. Warner Brothers, the parent company of CNN, has reportedly recently been exploring restructuring and political asset sales. And at one point, Netflix was supposed to acquire a majority of Warner Brothers studios and their streaming business. In that deal, CNN would have been spun out separately. But that deal completely fell apart. And suddenly, a new bidder, which is supposedly a superior deal, emerged. That deal was for Paramount, who's owned by David Ellison, the son of Oracle billionaire Larry Ellison, a longtime Trump ally. And here's the part that raised eyebrows across the entire media world. Just days before the shift, Donald Trump said publicly that it was imperative that CNN was sold. Media Matters first laid out the entire timeline in a detailed report titled With Paramount Set to Take Over WBD, Trump just steered a major news outlet into the hands of a crony. Trump publicly attacked Netflix and even suggested there could be consequences if the deal went forward with the original business acquisition from Netflix. He criticized Netflix board member Susan Rice by name. During the bidding process, leadership inside the Department of Justice's antitrust division was suddenly shaken up, and Paramount submitted an aggressive all cash offer with billions in breakup protections. Warner Brothers declared Paramount's bid superior, and Netflix walked away from the scene. Now, to be clear, there's no smoking gun that's linking direct involvement, but the sequence of political pressure, regulatory turbulence, and corporate reversal is exactly why media watchdogs alarms are sounding right now. Some coverage has framed CNN as a struggling cable channel. That's really misleading. CNN is still one of the most recognized news brands in the world, a primary source for international audiences, and a major agenda setter for political coverage in the United States. If ownership changes even a subtle amount, that ripple effects could shape what stories get covered, how aggressive power is actually challenged, and how political narratives reach millions of viewers. From the same Media Matters article, there's a section that says the result reeks of a political deal in which the president steered the ownership of a major news outlet to his crony. That's unconscionable in a free society, but a familiar tactic of authoritarian leaders like Hungary's Viktor Orban, who dismantled his country's independent news media through such methods in service of his vision of illiberal democracy, which Trump seeks to emulate. It's working. In less than a year, CBS News and the massive social media platform TikTok, along with Paramount's movie studios, have come under the thumb of a single family of pro Trump billionaires. If the Warner Brothers purchase goes through, CNN, along with HBO and Warner's movie business, will join them. Another article from the Dre dossier is titled, We Should All Be Freaking Out About CNN, and it goes even further in its analysis of how terrifying this new deal should be. The argument isn't just about one deal, it is about a broader pattern. Media consolidation is accelerating, political figures are increasingly pressuring corporate owners, and billionaires with clear political interests are gaining control over major information channels. And here's something those of us in independent media need to be honest about. CNN sits at the top of the journalism funnel. When creators break stories, that information almost always originated with a journalist who filed a Freedom of Information Act request or sat through 8 hours of congressional testimony. They are the headwaters. We are downstream. If editorial decisions at the top start being made for political reasons, it affects what stories exist in the first place. You cannot build what CNN has from scratch. You can only acquire it or destroy it. This is no hypothetical either. 6 days ago, CBS lawyers told the Late Show staff that a taped interview with a Democratic Senate candidate could not air, citing FCC guidance that hadn't been formally changed. CBS is owned by Paramount Skydance. The FCC chairman who applied the pressure approved the Paramount Skydance merger. Now imagine if that same pressure applied to a global news network. That is what is at stake right now. The concern isn't that CNN will suddenly turn into a propaganda outlet overnight. The concern is much more subtle and more dangerous. Gradual editorial pressure that happens behind closed doors, less aggressive investigations into actually challenging power and authority, and fewer stories that actually anger powerful allies. Not censorship, self censorship. And the Netflix aspect of this story is also something that I think is going really overlooked. That is a very important part of this entire timeline because according to reporting, Netflix had already signed an agreement for major Warner Brother assets and was positioned to be the leading buyer. But after political attacks and pressure from the president, the new Paramount bid with heavy financial protections, Netflix declined to match that offer. The shift is what transformed this from a routine corporate restructuring into a story about political power intersecting with media ownership. To be clear, we don't know the exact plans of CNN's editorial direction and where that's going to change, but this is the exact kind of moment that the public needs to pay attention to. Because freedom of the press is not just about government censorship, it's about who owns the news, who they answer to, and what incentives shape the type of coverage that's actually delivered to the public. When political power and media ownership start moving in the same direction, independence becomes harder to maintain, and the truth is completely obscured. This story is the prime example of people who are critical of capitalistic monopoly. This is not an authoritarian government that's just shutting down news orgs with censorship. This is political power that's reshaping the information ecosystem by buying it, by getting ownership over these media orgs and influencing it through their corporate money. And if that's one thing that history shows, it's that when the people in power start caring a lot about who owns the news, you should probably be paying attention to. Because the way that you receive information is dependent on who is calling the shots to actually put that information out.